Okay, we continue this little series, and again, it's a jump board from Easter, right? The springboard. He's risen indeed. We've seen the evidences with the disciples, we believe. I mean, the greatest evidence for me are the changed lives of those 11 disciples, right? They knew for certain whether they saw the risen Christ, and they lived very trying lives and died horrible deaths, and they were proclaiming one thing, that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. So we've seen the empty tomb, we've seen the soldiers run away, we've seen the witnesses of Mary, we've seen the witnesses of the lives of the disciples. We know that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. But what does that mean for us? How does it change things? What it means for us today? That's what we're looking at, okay, in this series. And today, one word, power, and the question of where could you use some? Power, where could you use some in your life, dear Christian friends? I think it was last week we sang the song, and it had a phrase like this. Let me see. The God of angel armies is always by my side. Remember that? Let's sing it together one more time. Ready? The God of angel armies is always by my side. Everybody, one more time. Ready? The God of angel armies is always by my side. Do you believe that? There's an Old Testament text. Elisha, the prophet of God, he's in this walled city, and he's got his little protege with him, right? And this huge Assyrian army has circled the city. Everybody in it is dead meat, right? They don't have a prayer. And Elisha's just really cool. It's like, you know, he doesn't have a care in the world. And his little protege guy, the guy he's teaching, he's freaking out, man. He's just going, we're all going to die. What's going on here? And Elisha prayed to God. He says, okay, God, open his eyes so he sees the army of the Lord. And God opened his eyes, and you had the city and the Assyrians, and behind the Assyrians you had the army of angels. Those poor Assyrians didn't have a chance. Do you believe that story? Do you believe that God has legions of angels that he sends to protect us and to be with us? Bill Hybels, in a book that he wrote about prayer, he told a story, and I've heard that from a number of places, not just in his book, but there were a couple, husband and wife team missionaries in Africa some time ago, and there was this one area where they were doing mission work that you couldn't go there after dark because the tribesmen would ambush you and kill you and take whatever you had, okay? And their car broke down right in that place. And they couldn't get it fixed, and so they were there all night long. And they didn't know why, but the tribesmen didn't attack them, and they made it through okay. But then they heard that in their church there were 12 guys who had promised to pray for them, all right? And the guy said, you know, it was crazy. That's one of the nights that we chose to pray for you all night long. And so all night long, these 12 guys in their home congregation were praying that God's protection. They didn't know that they were sitting in this place where everybody got killed if they got stranded there, right? They just knew they prayed for them. And later on, after one of the tribesmen became a Christian, he said, you know, we were going to attack you and murder you and take all you had, but you had those 12 hugely strong guys surrounding you. We were so scared we ran away. You think God could send 12 angels to do that? Believe that story? I remember a man that ran the mission department in the seminary I went to, Dr. Bunkowski, he was gored by an oxen, and the doctors told him that he had to be medevaced out of there. He was on the mission field in Africa as well, or else he might die. And he refused to go because he knew that the tribesmen would think that the spirits, the demons, okay, they had a demon for everything, and they would think that the demons were more powerful than his God, so he refused to go, even though the doctor said he'd probably die. And he didn't die. And those tribesmen became Christians. You think that was by chance? You think maybe the healing hand of God was on him? What do you think? You believe that? You know, the most powerful story I can tell you is one that you know by heart. The God of all the universe, the creator God that made all the stars who made all the galaxies, who created this earth and everything in it, the awesome, eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-everything God became one of us to help us. And this God who is life, he died for you. You believe that? And you believe that his death and the resurrection, where he showed his power and victory, do you believe these things defeats all shadows and darkness and tears and brokenness in your life and in our world? Now, that's a miracle, isn't it? Do you believe that? I think sometimes I don't even think we know the depths to which we're broken and the depths to which our world is broken. Do you believe that 2,000 years ago, this person wasn't just a person, but he was true God? Do you believe he took on that flesh for you? And when he said on the cross, "It is finished," he meant that you could have life with God every day. And there was a power and a reality that was greater than any struggle and any tear and any shadow, even death itself, that you might have to go through. Because all those things are true. So this is the question today. Where could you use some supernatural help in your life? Where are the shadows of the demons hanging over your head? Where is there an emptiness that you can't beat? Where are you crying out with the Old Testament writer, "This enemy is just too big, too great for me. My hands are limp. I can't even begin to fight. I just can't do it." Where are there such broken relationships that even when you try, you make it worse? Where is there utter hopelessness in your life? Where do you need the God of angel armies to step in with his power and to help you? That's what today is about. That's what this text is about, okay? I love this text. Peter, go ahead. Peter is tired of waiting around for Jesus to do something, okay? He's looking for a little meaning in his life. He wants to feel good about himself again. Remember, this is the guy that he denied Jesus 3 times. And he's a guy that he's just got to move. He's got a lot of energy, and he's got to, I can relate to this guy, right? He's not a kind of guy that sits around, right? This is the guy. So Peter says, "I'm going to go fishing." Now, he was a professional fisherman, remember? If there's one thing he knew he would have success in, it's fishing. He's trying to build his ego up a little bit, right? He's trying to say, "I am a somebody. Doggone it, I am a somebody. I know I fouled up, and I know I don't know the answer to this or that, and I can't fix anything, but I am a somebody," right? So he says, "I'm going to go build that up in me." And some of the other disciples who were professional fishermen, they said, "We're going with you. We need that, man." So they took the boat out on a lake that they grew up on. They said, "All right, we're going to kick it, man. We're going to show how good we are. We're going to build ourselves up again. I am a somebody." And they caught nothing. Nada. Zero. Man, they must have really felt bad about themselves. You ever feel bad about yourself? You know, you just, you don't have any self looking at yourself. You think you have no value at all, right? What were we looking for there? Self? Yeah, thanks. Okay, yeah, good. All right. So you just don't have that, right? That's where they were. And they're coming in, and there's this guy on the sand, right? And the text says that they can't recognize who it is. It's Jesus, but they don't know that. That seems to be a common theme. Have you noticed that? You had the two guys on the road to Emmaus, post-resurrection, right? And they were kept from recognizing him as Jesus. You had Mary Magdalene, who was crying so bad, right, that she couldn't recognize it was Jesus. And now you have the disciples. There's a guy on the sand. They don't know it's Jesus. Why do you think that common theme is in there? You think just maybe it's so that Jesus is teaching these guys what it's going to be like when Jesus ascends into heaven and they won't be able to walk with him anymore or see him with these eyes? You think maybe these things were recorded because we have to live life the same way? So they can't recognize this guy. But he calls out to them, and he says, friends. I love that. Friends, right? There's a place where Jesus said, I don't call you servants anymore, I call you friends. That's what he calls you, by the way, friend. So he calls out, he says, friends, throw out your net on the right-hand side. Now, you really can't get crass in a sermon, right? But I'm a guy, and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm doing something that I grew up doing, that nobody knows how to do it better than me, and I've worked all night at it, and then this guy I don't even know on the shore is telling me what to do, yeah, how are you going to respond to that, guys, right? Think about that. How are you going to respond to that? But against all common sense, all human sense, I guess you'd say, they listened to that voice. They obeyed it. Not because they understood that it was Jesus. They just obeyed that voice. And they threw the nets in, right? And then they had this huge catch of fish. In my private devotions, I'm in the middle of John. It's about John 13, 14, 15 in there. And what I really noticed in one of these chapters is that how many times, I think I underlined the word obey, 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 obey. It was like 4, 5, 6 times, right? Somebody can give you truth all day long, but unless you receive it and act on it, you get nothing, right? Jesus said, blessed is he who hears the word of God and does it. These guys could have heard this guy's voice all day long, right? And God could have put the fish in the water. It's all there, man. I'm ready to bless you. But what did they have to do? They had to obey, didn't they? They had to believe those words and act on them. That's the way it works. What words do you need to hear from Jesus in those places in your life when you need supernatural help? And receive those words in your life and act on them. Blessed, see that hears the word of God and acts on it and does it, huh? Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Do you believe that? Love one another as I have loved you. What would it take for you to act on that? Believe it so much that you... Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. You know, that text didn't say love them when they're lovable. No offense, gals, okay? It just says to love them. What would it take for you to know that's the best way to live in your life? For you not only to believe it, but to do it. You see, faith is always the hand that receives the gift. Even in those things that we call commandments, right? Have no other gods before me. You know that every other god puts you in slavery. Every other god you might have in this life puts you in a horrible, terrible, no good, very bad place. But this God gives you his grace and his love and gives you life the way it was meant to be. Don't commit adultery. Why? Because God created sex, man. The best place to live out that gift is in marriage. You believe that? What would it take for you to do it? To act on it. To receive this awesome blessing that God wants to give you with that gift of sex. See? To obey, to listen, to have faith enough to act on it is actually the hand that receives the blessing. disciples listened to this guy. And man, they got so much blessing, the nets couldn't even hold it. Where do you need that in your life? So they got to shore. And the text says that when they got to the shore, they saw a fire of burning coals, and there was fish on it. Now kind of think this through. The fish was already on it, so they didn't get it from the disciples. Does that make sense? This was kind of a supernatural thing again, you know? Why do you think the text tells us this? Because we tend to think when we learn this lesson we talked about to hear the words of God and keep them, we tend to think that somehow it's about jumping through hoops. And we need to do that. We make it a thing. We bang ourselves on the head and say, this is why God's going to like me, because I'm jumping through these hoops and listening to his words. No. It's always about grace. The fish were already there. It's always about grace. And because we know this grace, this undeserved love that's poured out upon us in Jesus Christ, it gives us the power by his Spirit to see all of his words as words of grace that are given to us and the blessings in them given to us just because he loves us. Fish were already there, man. Breakfast was served. It's all about grace. And then these words were said. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them and did the same with the fish. This wasn't just come and have grub, man. Huh? There was more to it than that. I remember when I was in Colorado, I am not a fisherman. I don't think I've ever, I'll take that back. The only kind of fishing I like to do is when I was scuba diving and I had the spear, right? That's my deal. This little hook in the water and you sit and wait. I never could do that. I just never could. Those of you who are fishermen, God bless you. I just can't ever catch a fish, right? But my brother, he can catch fish. I mean, he can really catch fish. And so he and his wife came to visit us in Colorado, and one of the families in the congregation let us use their cabin on a private lake. And then we went out and we went out and he caught all these trout, right? In the middle of winter, we put a hole in the ice, caught all these trout, and we took him back, and he really knows how to cook trout too. He baked them with this stuff in him, and he put them in, and it was cold outside, it was warm inside. Oh, and then he's a connoisseur of wine too, right? So in this great meal, he had a bottle of a great wine that we had, and my family was there, and he and his wife were there. We had this great time. It wasn't just a meal, was it? It was one of those special times. Just being with each other. That's what this was. Jesus sat down and he had this table fellowship. They were family. I don't call you servants anymore, I call you friends. That's where he wants you to live. In this table fellowship. This family. It all flows from here. These words, what do they remind you of? Jesus came and he took the bread and gave it to them, and then he did the same. Where's Jesus giving us bread? Huh? Where's he giving us bread? You think the early Christians thought about the same pattern of words? You better believe they did. They saw here Jesus inviting them to the family fellowship, to that moment where he's like this, and to live every moment in that moment. And he gives us that same gift. And with it, he gifts us with the faith to receive his words and to know that we live in his power. Because the God of angel armies is always by our side. Let's sing that again. The God of angel armies is always by my side. A little louder. The God of angel armies is always by my side. One more time. The God of angel armies is always by my side. Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who beat everything for us on the cross and rose again in all of his glory, walks with you in family fellowship with all of his power, and would step into your life with his wonderful words and give you the faith to live in that power. Amen.